In this video, we will focus on the list in Python. This is the first of two parts for beginners and non-beginners. If you're interested, there are examples of all the list functions given at the end of this video. Data structures can be easy to understand. We understand the concepts from real life. For example, if we've got a stack of books, we add another book on the top of the stack, and when we want to remove one, we remove it from the top. A queue, we join the queue at the end of the queue, and we leave the queue at the front. List is the same as a shopping list, multiple items in a list. And a dictionary, we have words and definitions, which make a key value pair. The same like a Christmas present, we add a name. We have to make sure that name is unique. Now we have several data structures we can use. In Python we have the lists, we also have the set, tuple, dictionaries, we use strings for characters, and we also have collections. Now we're going to look at data structures in computer science as well, where we have linear data structures and non-linear data structures. Now the list can help us with several of these. And in data science we have ND arrays, series and data frames. So we have a wide range of data structures. Now what levels are we going to cover? Well, we need to cover the basics, so that's the beginner level. So what are they, how do they work, what operations can be done, and what are the benefits and differences of these data structures? Now we want to go into a little bit more detail, so we can look at a more advanced level. So how are these data structures different in Python than other languages? How do they work in Python? What about things like storage and complexity? So we'll look at data structures like lists. We'll look at the basics like the operations of update, insert, delete and ordering. Operations that we apply on the members, so like mathematical operations or logical operations or functional. And then we can look at the more advanced levels of things like storage and access and complexity. So let's start off with lists. Well, for lists for beginners, the important parts are an index is used to access elements of the list. We can change list elements. We can slice a list. We also have many functions that we apply on the list. We iterate through a list using a loop. We can also use something called range. So this is how we can print and access different elements in a list. And also we can compare lists with strings and sets and tuples. Now, as we said, we'll cover more advanced levels in lists, but this will be in the second part. Let's look at lists for beginners. As in real life, a list is a collection of items. It can be empty. It might have different types of items, and we always add a new item at the end of a list. A definition might be an ordered collection of items identified by an index number that marks their position relative to the first item. So that's a bit of a different way of explaining a list. What does that mean? We'll look at that when we look at the index. So here's some examples. We can just create a list or an empty list. Here's a list of integers, of characters, which are strings. Then we have a list that has different data types, which is allowed in Python. So here we've got A and 2 and C, which are all strings, and the integer 2 and 3. We can even put another list inside a list. So here we have 1, 2, 3, which is a nested list, inside a list called X, which also has A, B and C. So we can do quite a lot of things with lists in Python. Now if we want to access the items in a list, we can use a for loop, for example. So here we've got a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when we print them in a for loop, they will print on different lines. Now we've talked about this index, and we said about the distance from the first element. The reason why we explain it like that is it starts at 0. which might seem a bit strange. You would think the first element is number 1, second number 2, etc. That's not how it works. With an index, the first element is indexed, is accessed using the number 0. So we'll see examples, but just first of all, we need to clarify the first element is accessed using the index number 0. Now the next element is 1 away, so that's access number 1. And in this example, we've got 10, 20, 30. 30 is 2 items away from the beginning, so that's accessed using number 2. So basically, we can access elements in a list by using the number, but the number starts at 0. So here we have a list with elements 10, 20 and 30 inside. Now, if we print the first element, we use 0 in square brackets, the index number, and that will output 10. If we use 1 in square brackets, that will output 20. And if we use 2 in square brackets, that will output 30. We can also go from the end of the list using a minus number. So if we have the list here called nums, and we access the last element using -1, that will print 30. Now we can use that to change elements. So here we have my list, which is a list of capital letters from A to F. Now if we change the first element using the index 0 to a lowercase a, and the fourth element use the index 3 to a lowercase d, you can see when we print my list that we have lowercase a, b, c, lowercase d, e, f. So not only have we shown you can change elements in the list, in Python it's called mutable, also we can see we can use the index number to access that element. Here's an example. In Python you can change elements. Here we've got mylist1, mylist2, and then we're going to change that to mylist2, mylist1. So we're just changing the order. So in this example we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, and that will change to A, C, B, D, E, F. So we can change the elements around. We can also slice the list. So here we've got A to F again, and now we're using the index to take a slice of that list. So we're going from number 1 to number 4. Now this works slightly differently. So you can see here we're going to slice off 3 elements, which are B, C and D. But we have to be careful where we start and finish. But we use the notation of a number, then a colon, then another number. So we have the start and the end. So perhaps an easy way to think of this is a slice of a pie. So here we have A, B, C, D, E, F, and we want to slice off B, C and D. If we use the numbers to access the parts of the pie, if you like, when we slice it, it's quite easy to understand. Here we've named each part, each place around each element of the list. So we start at 0, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when we slice from 1 to 4, you can see it's quite easy to see that it's B, C and D. Now, if we remove the first element, we slice from the start. So here we're going to slice up to place 4, which you can see clearly is A, B, C and D. We can do the same but slice to the end. So here we start at place 1 and then we go to the end of the list. So we have B, C, D, E and F. Okay, now we're going to go through all the functions that we can apply on list and list functions. And for a more advanced look at lists, we're going to cover that in part 2 in the next video. So if you're interested in functions, please carry on watching.